Chapter 5. Sonya meets Giny Bubo. Our next brush with the great horned owl came at dusk one day soon after Looney Coon's narrow escape. Nightly he was in evidence. We named him Giny Bubo. His scientific name is Bubo virginianus. I twisted that around and rearranged it to suit the purpose. We didn't know whether the bird was male or female, as owl ladies and gentlemen dress alike. However, by using the name Giny Bubo, part of the time and the pronoun he at others, we were sure to be right occasionally. Jenny Campbell accepted the name for the owl under protest. With all the nice animals we have around, why would you call that owl Jenny? She complained. I'm having such a hard time to like him, and now you give him my name. But the name stuck. Vainly we wished we would go elsewhere, but apparently he decided he had struck a most happy hunting ground. No doubt his sharp eyes had noticed the large number of animals about our home, and he planned to settle down to a life of luxury and abundance. One long June evening we arranged for Sonya to visit Cooney Castle. That scene should have been televised. It would have been difficult to find more joy and happiness in one earthly spot than we saw there. The Eck family came by boat, and in our canoe we led them to the shore where the hollow maple stub was standing. Jenny made sure Andrea was at home and in a proper mood to receive company. Then she gave Sonya a flashlight and asked her to peek into the tree. The child was so excited she could not do it at first. She was trembling from head to foot. When at last she looked down on the raccoon family, we thought she was going to climb right through the hole. Oh, mother, father, was there ever anything so wonderful? She squealed with delight. Just look at these darling creatures. And then she reached a pitch of enthusiasm where no words would suffice, and she kept exclaiming, "Oh, oh, oh!" "Tell me, Sonya," said Jenny, "is there a little cub with a floppy ear and a white streak on his head?" "Yes, there is. I've been watching him. He's cute." "Well, that's Looney Coon. He's the one we think is such a problem child." "What's the mother's name?" she asked. "Andrea." "Andrea. She's a good and patient mother." The happy child giggled. "Why, Looney Coon is biting her in the face. Now he's walking right over the others, stepping on them. He's biting each one. He's awful." Oh, Andrea looked so proud of her family. Sonya brought her head out of the tree and looked at us. "I'm being very selfish," she said apologetically. "I'm not giving anyone else a chance to see, am I? Come, Father, you must look." Mr. Eck took his turn and, in a somewhat restrained way, reported that Looney Coon was still disturbing the household and that Andrea seemed especially fond of her naughty cub. She was carefully caressing and washing Looney. Next, Mrs. Eck went to the tree. She hesitated, suggesting, "Maybe we hadn't better disturb them any more." "Oh, I'm sure they don't mind," Jenny said. "Andrea always likes people." "All people?" Mrs. Eck asked. "Yes, all people." "Well, here goes." Mrs. Eck bravely stepped up on the log, drew in one deep breath as if she thought it her last one, and literally thrust her head into the tree opening. Whether she did it too quickly or what, I do not know, but something suddenly changed the mood in Cooney Castle. There was a series of angry growls from the tree. With a long, high-pitched eek, Mrs. Eck jerked her head out, leaped from the log, and ran behind another tree. Andrea looked out the hole with an expression of belligerence I had never seen on her face before. Mr. Eck consoled his wife while Sonya apologized to Andrea. Did Mother frighten you, Andrea? She said solicitously as she went to the tree. Did I frighten her? Asked Mrs. Eck, recovering her breath. What did she do to me? Then she added in a low voice, and I read about raccoons for hours before I came here. Just before sunset, Mr. and Mrs. Eck went fishing, and Jenny and I took Sonya for the first canoe ride of her life. It was a lovely evening, and the child was thrilled. Nighthawks were circling overhead. Do you hear that peculiar sound they make as they dive? Sonya had been listening to it. Well, that's air rushing through their wings. We were to learn that Sonya needed to be told the same fact twice. She had a remarkable memory and a capacity for nature knowledge. And what's that sound? She asked, pointing in the direction from which a sound came. I listened and made out the distant cry of the owl Giny Bubo. He wasn't using the hunting cry now. It was his hoot call repeated again and again. Jenny told Sonya of our experience with the owl and how he had attacked Looney Coon. But I hear two of them now, Sonya said. There's another voice far, far off and away. Listen carefully, and sure enough, there was a second owl calling. I'm glad you discovered them, Sonya, I said. Here's something I've been wanting Jenny to hear, and you'll want to notice it too. You're listening to two different species of owls. Are we? Sonya asked. They sound just the same to me. And to me too, Sonya. There's a difference, I insisted. Listen carefully. The one to the left of Giny Bubo. Notice he goes hoo, hoo hoo, hoo ho. The second is a third ho hos. Second and third ho hos are close together. He changes the number of hoots, sometimes giving three of them, sometimes five, sometimes six. The two listened closely and verified this rhythm. Now listen to the other. That's the barred owl. He's a nicer fellow around farms, not apt to attack poultry. He gives his hoots in two groups of 4, 8 calls in all. For this reason, he's sometimes called 8-hooter. Yes, exclaimed Sonya. I counted them. There were 8 hoos. And I noticed something else. The one to the right, the barred owl. Yes, the barred owl drops his voice on the last hoot. That's right, Sonya, I agreed. You're a good observer. His last hoot is a hoo-ah with a downward inflection. That's an easy way to distinguish the two. You'll always know the calls of the great horned owl and the barred owl now. Isn't it fun to learn things about nature, Sonya? Jenny commented. But Sonya didn't hear her. Her attention was focused on an object far ahead of the canoe. A family of wild ducks, Sonya, I said, following her gaze. A mother and 6 or 7 young. What graceful swimmers they are. The ducks were working their way into the west bay of our lake. This bay has a swampy area with many stumps sticking out of the water and tangled marginal brush. I presumed the ducks were going back into this area for shelter during the night, and very possibly they had nested here. A lovely sunset was developing in the west. For a few minutes our attention was drawn to that. A great blue heron leisurely flapped his way through the sky silhouetted against pink clouds. High above the level of the heron, a bald eagle was circling in effortless flight. An eagle! Exclaimed Sonya, much excited. Oh, I've always wanted to see an eagle. And there he is, I said. Can you see the whites at his head and tail? Though his underside is dark, that's how you identify him. There's another bird called the osprey, which flies much the same way, but he's all white underneath, so you can easily distinguish him. And what was that? Jenny asked. From the depths of the bay came a cry that had a quality of fear in it. It was the voice of a duck, but one in distress. Our little family of ducks had disappeared into the shoreline shadows, and the cry came from the direction they had taken. Something must have caught one of those ducks, I suggested. Oh no! What would do that? Well, a turtle or muskellunge. A what? A muskellunge. A large, savage type of fish we have in the north. But at the moment, another voice spoke up that told me the story. It was the hunting cry of Giny Bubo, with which we were already too familiar. It's that owl, I stated. He's after those ducks. His call is from one very place they went. Oh, why doesn't he go someplace, any place? Ginny moaned. Couldn't you learn to talk owl to him, Sam, and tell him to go away? To Africa or to the moon? Ho, 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 me? I asked. Then I added quickly, I see him. Look in that tall, dead tree silhouetted against the low clouds. He's in the very top of it. Sonya and Giny had to search for a moment, but they found him. His call came regularly now, and so did the distressed cry of the ducks. We were paddling as rapid as we could, and still avoid the many roots and stubs of trees as we got deep into the bay. And the look of things was all too plain to us. The ducks had taken shelter under the overhanging brush at the shoreline, Sonya explained. It isn't much protection, but it has saved them so far. No doubt Ginny Bubo is just figuring out a way to attack them. We were close enough now to see the family of ducks, the little ones huddled about the mother. If the young did not realize their danger, the old mother was fully aware of it. She knew the few slender bushes standing between them and that master hunter offered little protection. In desperation, she kept repeating that heartrending cry. If she remained where she was, the owl would attack sooner or later. If she tried to swim away and thus enter the water, she was at his mercy. So intent were the birds on their problem that neither owl nor ducks noticed us until we were quite close. When they finally discovered us, there was confusion among the ducks and much great resentment by Ginny Bubo. His cry became almost a shriek as he screamed his rage at us. I had to ask Sonya to sit down in the canoe. She was so excited and so in sympathy with the belligerent ducks that she seemed ready to jump overboard and swim to the rescue. The ducks had a difficult decision to make. Coming toward them was a man, the kind of creature that destroys countless thousands of their kind every year with his thundering guns. High above in the trees was their old enemy, the owl. Doesn't she know we're here to help her? Sonya asked. Yes, I think she does, I replied. See, she's getting her young ones close about her. Look, bless her heart, she's coming right to us, Jenny exclaimed. From her seat in the bow of the canoe, she could see better than Sonya or I. Logs now blocked our path, so that we could get no nearer to the ducks. But under the leadership of the mother, they were sailing out to meet us. Ginny Bobo looked down and yelled his frustration. Here was a choice duck dinner, well within reach. Those ducks were in the open water, but they were too close to the canoe for him to attack. Fear of us held him back. He stretched his great wings. He pranced back and forth on the branch where he perched. He raised his feathers until he looked twice normal size. In fact, so threatening was his attitude that I wondered if I would have to fight him off with my canoe paddle, something I did not want to do, for it is hazardous to move about that way in a canoe. Jenny Bubo did not attack. He contented himself with hurling uncomplimentary epithets at the ducks and at us and probably at all of our kind. Look, look! Exclaimed Sonya, delighted at the turn of events. Why, those ducks are so close I could almost touch them. The mallard and her young had come within a paddle's length of the canoe. She looked at us as much as to say, "You wouldn't take advantage of us, would you? Harm us when we're trying to get away from that old so and so up there? You're safe. You're fine, old mother," Jenny said in a low voice. "Nothing's going to hurt you or your babies if you stay close to us." Stay close she did. I began sculling the canoe away from the shore. Our little feathered flotilla kept pace with us, making every turn we did. This is the first time I ever conveyed a family of ducks through the battle zone, I commented cheerily, feeling that we had triumphed. Isn't it wonderful? Sonya cried. We paddled on into the open lake, the ducks staying right beside the canoe. The sunset had faded and the afterglow hung in the northwest. We talked to the ducks, and they squawked and babbled to us. Neither knew just what the other was saying, but likely their squawking had much to do with Giny Bubo, his ancestors, and his ancestors' ancestors. Do you suppose they can fly? Sonya asked. The ducks answered the question. Now, with a broad lake before them, they spurted ahead, led by the mother, and gracefully took to the air, choosing a course directly away from the scene of their near tragedy. They disappeared into the darkened east. Well, Bubo, said Jenny, looking back toward the west, we whipped you that time. Ho, 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 came Bubo's voice from afar back in the forest.